Maria opened the door to find her husband standing in the hallway. He smiled at her. Then he vanished. 2 minutes later, the phone rang. Highway patrol. Fatal accident. Marco had been dead for 3 hours. But she had just seen him, touched him, heard his voice. Stay with me until the end, because what happened in that house defies every law of reality we know. And Maria isn't the only one this has happened to. Let me take you back to where this all started. Marco Silva was a long-haul trucker, 42 years old, 20 years on the road. He drove the BR-116, one of Brazil's most dangerous highways. The route between Sao Paulo and Curitiba was his territory. He knew every curve, every pothole, every dangerous stretch where fog rolled in without warning. His wife, Maria, was 38, a school teacher. They had 2 kids, 15-year-old daughter named Juliana, 12-year-old son, Pedro. They lived in a small house on the outskirts of Registro, a quiet town in the interior of Sao Paulo state. Marco's routine never changed. Leave Sunday night, return Friday evening. 5 days on the road, 2 days home. For 20 years, like clockwork. Maria had learned to live with the absence. The empty side of the bed. The dinners for 3 instead of 4. The constant knot in her stomach every time a police siren passed by. Every trucker's wife knows that fear. The phone call that never comes, until it does. But Marco was careful, religious even. He never drove tired, never took pills to stay awake, never pushed beyond his limits. He talked to Maria every night at 8 p.m., without fail. If he was even 5 minutes late, she'd start to worry. Their marriage had survived what most couldn't: the loneliness, the distance, the worry. They had built something solid over 2 decades, something that most people only dream about. Marco wasn't just a good husband, he was a good father. When he was home on weekends, he was present, fully present. No phone, no TV, just his family. He'd take Pedro to soccer practice every Saturday morning, rain or shine. He'd help Juliana with her math homework, even though he'd only finished 8th grade himself. He'd dance with Maria in the kitchen while making breakfast, embarrassing the kids, but making her laugh. Those weekends were sacred. They were what kept Maria going through the long weeks alone. Friday, March 13th, 2019. Marco's last run of the week. He was hauling agricultural equipment from Curitiba back to Sao Paulo. Simple load, good weather, clear roads. He'd left Sunday evening, same as always. The goodbye at the door, the kiss, the promise to call every night, the ritual they'd perfected over 20 years. Monday night, 8 p.m. Call came through. Day 1 down, 4 to go. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Traffic was hell, but I'm good. Tell Pedro I saw a truck with his favorite team's logo. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Halfway through. Week, baby. Can't wait to see you. Thursday night, 8 p.m. One more day, one more night, then I'm home. Friday night, 8 p.m. The final call. I'll be home by 11, he said. Tell the kids I'm bringing pizza. His voice was normal, happy even, excited to be home for the weekend. Drive safe, Maria said. She always said that, every single call. Always do, Marco replied. Love you. Love you too. That was the last time they spoke. Those words. Love you too. The last word she'd ever say to her living husband. If she'd known, would she have said more? Would she have kept him on the phone longer? Would she have begged him not to drive that night? These are the questions that would haunt her for years. Maria started preparing the house. She put fresh sheets on their bed, the good ones, the ones Marco liked because they were soft and smelled like lavender. She vacuumed the living room, cleaned the bathroom, set the table. She made coffee because Marco always wanted coffee when he got home, no matter how late it was, no matter how tired. That first cup of coffee at home was his ritual, his way of transitioning from the road to family life. The kids were already asleep. Juliana in her room with headphones on, watching something on her phone. Pedro passed out in front of the TV, controller still in his hand from playing video games. Maria sat on the couch, waiting, her phone on the armrest, remote in her hand,
flipping through channels without really watching anything. She was thinking about the weekend. Maybe they'd go to the beach. The weather was supposed to be nice. Or maybe just stay home, grill some meat in the backyard, let Marco rest. He'd been looking tired lately. The lines around his eyes had deepened. His back hurt more. He was getting older. They both were. She'd been thinking about asking him to consider local routes, something that would bring him home every night. But truckers don't retire from the road. They die on it. That's what Marco always said. It was in his blood. 10:30. Marco would be about 30 minutes out. Maria got up, checked her appearance in the hallway mirror, smoothed her hair. She still wanted to look nice for him, even after 20 years, even at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. 11 p.m., right on time. She heard it, the sound of his truck, that specific diesel engine rumble, deep and throaty. She'd heard it 1,000 times. She could recognize Marco's truck in a parking lot full of identical vehicles just by the sound. It was a Scania, blue and silver, his pride and joy. He kept it immaculate, washed it every Sunday morning before leaving. Checked the oil, the tires, the lights. That truck was his partner on the road. He treated it better than some men treat their wives. The engine idled for a moment in front of the house, then shut off. Maria smiled. She got up from the couch, walked to the kitchen, and put water on the stove for coffee. She heard the gate creak open, that rusty sound it always made. She'd been asking Marco to oil it for months. He always said he would. Next weekend. Always next weekend. Footsteps on the gravel driveway, heavy work boots, Marco's walk. Tired, shuffling slightly. The walk of a man who'd been sitting for 10 hours straight. She knew that walk, could identify it in the dark. The front door opened. Maria turned from the stove. "You're home," she said. Marco stood in the doorway. He was wearing his usual clothes, dark blue work pants, gray button-up shirt with the company logo on the chest, steel-toe boots covered in road dust. His cap was missing. His hair was messy, pressed flat on one side where the cap usually sat. He looked tired. His eyes were shadowed, deep circles underneath. But he was smiling. That smile, the one she'd fallen in love with 23 years ago at a bus stop, the one that made her believe everything would be okay. "Missed you," he said. His voice sounded strange, distant, like he was speaking from the end of a long tunnel, or like he was underwater. Maria noticed, but dismissed it. He was exhausted. Of course his voice would sound off. "Go shower," she said. "I'm making coffee. Pizza's in the oven." She'd picked up the pizza on her way home from school. His favorite, pepperoni and extra cheese, from that place near the market that he loved. Marco nodded, slowly, like it took effort. He walked past her, down the hallway toward their bedroom. His footsteps were heavy on the tile floor, each step deliberate, careful. If you're feeling that knot in your stomach right now, that sense that something is very wrong, subscribe to the channel. Because this story is just beginning, and what comes next will make you question everything you think you know about death. Maria went back to the stove. The water was starting to boil. She grabbed the coffee grounds from the cupboard, measured out 3 spoons, poured them into the paper filter. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen, that rich, dark aroma that meant home, that meant Marco was back, that meant her family was complete again, even if just for 2 days. She grabbed 2 mugs from the cabinet. His favorite mug, the one the kids had given him for Father's Day 5 years ago. It said "World's Best Dad" in fading letters. The house was quiet, too quiet. She realized she hadn't heard the shower turn on. Usually by now, she'd hear the pipes groaning as hot water rushed through them. She'd hear the bathroom fan kick on. She'd hear Marco singing off-key, some old song from the radio. But there was nothing, just silence. "Marco?" she called out. No answer. Maybe he was taking off his boots. They were always a pain to remove. Steel-toe, lace-up. He usually sat on the edge of the bed and struggled with them for 5 minutes. "Marco, the coffee's ready." Nothing. Maria turned off the stove, poured the coffee into his mug. Steam rose from the dark liquid. She carried it down the hallway. The bedroom door was half open. She pushed it all the way. Empty. The bed was untouched, still made with the fresh sheet she put on. The window was closed. The closet door was shut. No Marco. She checked the bathroom. Empty. The shower was dry. The towel she'd laid out was still folded on the rack. She checked Pedro's room. Just her son, sleeping. His chest rising and falling. Controller on the floor where it had fallen from his hand. Juliana's room. Just her daughter. Headphones still on. Phone screen glowing in the dark. Marco? Her voice sounded small in the empty house. Maria walked back to the living room. Looked out the front window. No truck. The driveway was empty. Just gravel and shadows cast by the streetlight. The gate was still closed. Still rusty. Still in the exact same position it had been all evening. She opened the front door. Stepped outside. The night air was cool. Quiet. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. A car passed on the street, its tail lights disappearing around the corner. But no truck. No Marco. She stood there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She had heard the truck. That specific sound. Marco's truck. She knew that sound better than her own heartbeat. She had heard the gate, that rusty creak, the sound that woke her up every Friday night when he came home late. She had heard his footsteps, heavy boots on gravel, the shuffle of exhaustion. She had seen him standing in the doorway, his face, his clothes, his smile. She had heard his voice, "Missed you." But he wasn't here, and judging by the undisturbed gate, the empty driveway, the dry shower, he never had been. The phone rang, that specific ring that comes at night, sharp, urgent, cutting through silence like a knife. The ring that every trucker's wife dreads, the ring that lives in nightmares. Maria picked it up with shaking hands. "Mrs. Silva, this is Highway Patrol, Register Division." The voice on the other end was male, professional, but with that undertone of sympathy that cops use when they're about to destroy your life. That careful gentleness that means bad news. "Yes?" Maria's voice was barely a whisper. "There's been an accident on BR 116, kilometer marker 247. Maria's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the couch. The coffee mug was still in her hand. Hot liquid sloshed onto her fingers. She didn't feel it. "Your husband, Marco Silva? I'm very sorry to inform you that he was involved in a head-on collision with a cargo truck. We believe the vehicle crossed the median. Your husband's truck went off the embankment." The words kept coming, but Maria couldn't process them. Her brain had shut down, refusing to accept what she was hearing. "I'm very sorry, Mrs. Silva. He didn't survive." "When?" Maria interrupted. Her voice was mechanical, distant. "When did it happen?" A pause on the other end. The sound of papers rustling. "We estimate around 8:15 p.m., ma'am. Emergency services arrived at 8:30. He was pronounced dead at the scene at 8:47 p.m. 8:15. 45 minutes after their phone call. 45 minutes after he told her he'd be home by 11. 3 hours before Maria saw him standing in her doorway. "That's impossible," Maria whispered. "Ma'am, I just saw him. He just walked into my house 5 minutes ago. He was here. He spoke to me." Silence on the other end. The kind of silence that screams discomfort. The kind that says, "We have a problem here. Ma'am, I understand this is difficult, but that's not possible. Your husband was pronounced dead at the scene at 8:47 p.m. That was over 2 hours ago. I'm looking at the report right now. Multiple witnesses, first responders, the coroner." "You're wrong," Maria said. But even as she said it, she knew they weren't wrong. The empty driveway, the dry shower, the closed gate. Marco hadn't come home, but she had seen him. "Mrs. Silva, is there someone we can call? A family member? Someone who can be with you?" "No," Maria said. "No,
"I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She would never be fine again. "We'll need you to come identify the body. Tomorrow morning would be best. I'm very sorry for your loss." Maria hung up. She sat there, phone in her lap, staring at the front door. The coffee was boiling over on the stove. She could hear it hissing, spilling onto the burner, filling the kitchen with the smell of burning. She didn't move, because she knew what she'd seen. She knew what she'd heard. Marco had come home. Somehow, impossibly, he had come home. The funeral was 3 days later, Monday afternoon, closed casket. The accident had been catastrophic. The impact had crushed the cab. The fall down the embankment had done the rest. The police had been kind enough to spare her the details, but she'd heard the whispers, the paramedics talking in low voices, the funeral director's careful words. An open casket wouldn't be advisable. Translation: Marco's body was too damaged, too broken, too much of a nightmare to show. Maria nodded, agreed to everything, signed papers, made decisions, all while feeling like she was moving through water. Everything distant, muffled, unreal. The service was well attended. Marco had been liked, respected. Other truckers came, men who'd driven the same routes, who'd shared meals at truck stops, who'd kept each other awake on long nights via CB radio. Maria's family came, her sister, her parents. Marco's mother, who was too old and too broken to cry anymore. She just sat in the front pew, staring at the closed casket, her hands folded in her lap. The kids were there. Juliana crying quietly, trying to be strong. Pedro unable to process it, asking questions that no one could answer. "When is Dad coming back?" "He's not coming back, baby." "But where did he go?" "Heaven. Dad's in heaven." "Can we visit him?" "Not yet. Not for a long time." How do you explain death to a 12-year-old? How do you explain that the person who taught you to ride a bike, who went to every soccer game, who made terrible jokes at breakfast, is just gone? Just erased from existence? You can't. So you lie. You say he's in a better place. You say he's watching over us. You say things that you're not sure you believe yourself. At the wake, something strange happened. An old woman approached Maria. She was maybe 75, wearing black, rosary beads wrapped around her wrinkled hands. Her face was kind but carved with deep lines of grief. "Your husband came home first, didn't he?" the woman said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Maria stared at her. "How did you—" "My son was a trucker. 15 years ago, he died on the Regis Bittencourt Highway. Section near Jucatiba. Foggy night. Hit a stalled truck. Died instantly." The old woman's eyes were wet, but no tears fell. "I saw him that night. He walked into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. I heard the door, his footsteps. He was wearing his work clothes. He walked up behind me, kissed my forehead, and said, 'I love you, Mama.' I turned around to hug him. He was gone." The phone rang 5 minutes later. Maria felt the ground shift beneath her. "You're not crazy," the old woman continued. "It happens. More than people want to admit. They come home one last time. To say goodbye. It's a gift." "A gift?" Maria's voice cracked. "Yes, not everyone gets it. But those of us who do, we're lucky. We got to see them one more time. We got to hear their voice, feel their presence. It's a mercy." The old woman squeezed Maria's hand. "Don't question it. Don't analyze it. Just accept it. He loved you enough to come back, even after death. That's a love most people never experience." She walked away before Maria could respond. Maria stood there, in the funeral home, surrounded by flowers and grief and the smell of lilies, trying to process what she'd just heard. She wasn't alone. This had happened before, to others. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't grief-induced madness. It was real.
Marco had come home. Maria wanted to believe the old woman. She tried to believe that it was a gift, a final moment of grace, a last goodbye. But late at night, lying in bed, staring at the empty space where Marco used to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that
It wasn't a gift at all. It was a warning. And this wasn't the only time it had happened. I started digging into this because Maria's story isn't unique. It's not even rare. There are hundreds of documented cases, thousands maybe. Truckers who die on the highway and appear to their families at the exact moment of death, sometimes hours after. The pattern is too consistent to be coincidence. In 2003, a trucker named Roberto Alves died in a crash near Campinas. Multiple vehicles pile up in heavy fog. His wife Sandra saw him walk into their bedroom at the exact moment of the accident. He took off his boots, sat on the edge of the bed, started to lie down. She tried to talk to him. He didn't respond. She reached out to touch him. Her hand went right through, like he was made of smoke. In 2011, a woman named Carla woke up at 3 a.m. to find her husband standing in their kitchen. He was soaking wet, covered in blood. His clothes were torn. He was staring at her with wide, terrified eyes. He pointed at the door, then vanished. The hospital called 20 minutes later. He'd driven off a bridge into a river during a thunderstorm, drowned before help could arrive. In 2016, a trucker's teenage son woke up to find his father sitting at the foot of his bed. His dad smiled at him, ruffled his hair like he used to when the boy was little, said, "Be good for your mom, make me proud," then disappeared like smoke. The accident had happened 4 hours earlier on a remote stretch of highway in Mato Grosso. What makes this even stranger is the consistency of the details. They always look real, solid, not transparent or ghostly like in movies. You could pass them on the street and not know they were dead. They often perform routine actions, taking off boots, making coffee, sitting down, things they did every day in life. They rarely speak more than a few words, and when they do, it's always something meaningful. I love you, goodbye, be strong. And they always vanish before physical contact is made, as if reality only allows them to exist for a moment, a brief window, a crack in the wall between life and death. Paranormal researchers have a theory. They call it a crisis apparition. The idea is that at the moment of death, when the trauma is so sudden and violent, the consciousness makes one final desperate attempt to reach home. The bond between loved ones, especially family, is so strong that it can briefly override the laws of physics. For just a moment, love becomes stronger than death. The dying person's last thought is of home, of family, and that thought, powered by the massive energy release of death, manifests physically. It's not a ghost, it's not a spirit, it's a projection, a final burst of consciousness before it winks out forever. To say goodbye, to let their family know they're okay, or maybe to warn them. Because here's where it gets darker. If this story is gripping you, hit the like button now. It helps the channel grow and motivates me to bring more stories like this. After Marco's funeral, Maria started having dreams. Every night, the same dream. Marco standing at the end of a dark highway, fog rolling around his feet, his work clothes torn and bloody. He was waving at her, both arms over his head, frantically, like he was trying to flag down a speeding truck. He was shouting, his mouth moving, but she couldn't hear what he was saying. The wind was too loud, traffic too loud, the roar of engines drowning out his voice. But he kept pointing, behind her, at something she couldn't see. Every time she tried to turn around to look, she'd wake up, heart pounding, sheets soaked with sweat. What was he trying to tell her? Maria became obsessed. She started researching the BR-116, the stretch where Marco died, kilometer marker 247, just outside Registro, near a place the locals called Curva da Morte, death curve. She found news articles, dozens of them, hundreds, going back decades. It's called the Highway of Death for a reason. Between 2015 and 2020, over 1,200 people died on that route. Truckers mostly, but also families, kids. Entire van loads of people wiped out in seconds. The statistics were horrifying. An average of 1 death every 36 hours. Some weeks were worse. Holiday weekends could see 5 or 6 fatal accidents in a single night. The reasons varied: fog, rain, poorly maintained roads, drunk drivers, exhausted truckers pushing beyond safe limits, cargo trucks with failing brakes, curves that came up too fast in the dark. But there was something else, something the articles danced around but never stated outright. The highway was cursed. That's what the locals believed. That's what truckers whispered to each other on CB radio late at night. That's what families who'd lost loved ones knew in their bones. There's a spot near Registro, Curva da Morte, Death Curve. It's a sharp bend, poorly banked, with a steep embankment on one side. In the fog, which rolls in most nights, it's almost invisible. By the time you see it, it's too late to slow down. Trucks take it too fast. They cross the median. Head-on collisions are common. Marco died half a kilometer from that curve. His truck had gone off the embankment, rolled 3 times. By the time it stopped, there was nothing left but twisted metal and shattered glass. Maria started talking to other widows, other families who'd lost someone on that highway. She found them through support groups, online forums, Facebook pages dedicated to memorial and awareness. And she discovered something horrifying. Almost all of them had seen their dead loved ones come home. But it wasn't just a goodbye. It was a pattern. Every single one of them reported the same thing. The apparition would appear, say a few words or perform an action, then point or look toward the door, toward the road, toward the highway, as if they were trying to warn about something. But warn about what? Maria decided she needed to see the spot where Marco died. She drove there on a Friday night, 3 weeks after the funeral. The same day of the week he died. The same time, 11 p.m. The road was dark, mostly empty. A few trucks passed, their lights cutting through the fog that was already starting to roll in from the coast. She parked on the shoulder, near the kilometer marker. Someone had built a small memorial. A wooden cross with Marco's name painted in white. Plastic flowers zip-tied to the base. A photo of him, laminated to protect it from rain. He was smiling in the photo, taken on his birthday 2 years ago, before the lines around his eyes got so deep, before the gray in his hair spread, when he still looked young. Maria stood there, trying to feel something, anything, connection, grief, closure. But there was nothing, just cold wind and the sound of distant traffic. And then she heard it. A truck horn, long and sustained, the kind truckers use to warn other drivers. The blast echoed across the empty highway. Then the sound of screeching brakes, rubber screaming against asphalt, the high-pitched squeal of metal under stress. Then impact. The sound was deafening, metal crushing, glass shattering, the horrible crunch of a vehicle compacting under forces it was never designed to withstand. Maria ran toward the sound. Her heart was pounding, adrenaline flooding her system. She expected to see flames, smoke, wreckage, bodies. But when she got to the curve, there was nothing. No accident, no debris, no skid marks, no smoke. Just an empty highway. The fog rolled across the asphalt like something alive, swirling, reaching. Maria stood there, shaking, and realized something. She'd just heard Marco's accident. A replay, an echo. Trauma so intense it left a scar on reality itself. The highway wasn't just haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by moments, by the violent, sudden deaths that happened there, over and over, playing out like recordings. And somehow, for some reason, she could hear them. Get ready, because from here on out, there's no turning back. Maria started spending every Friday night at that spot, 11 p.m., waiting. She brought coffee and a thermos, sat in her car with the heater on, watched the highway. And every single time, at exactly 11:07 p.m., she heard it. The horn, the brakes,
The crash. Marco's last moments, replaying for eternity. But she also started hearing something else. Voices, whispers in the fog. At first she thought it was the wind, or her imagination. Grief playing tricks on her mind. But the words were too clear, too specific. Turn around, go back, don't stop here, get off the highway. It wasn't.
It was many, layered, overlapping, men, women, children, all of them speaking at once, all of them trying to warn. It wasn't just Marco, it was all of them. Every trucker who died on that highway, every family, every victim of every accident. They were trapped there, in that moment, replaying their deaths over and over. But they were also aware, conscious, trying to help, trying to prevent more deaths. Maria realized that when Marco came home that night, he wasn't just saying goodbye. He was trying to protect her, trying to warn her that the highway was hungry, that it took and never gave back, and that if she wasn't careful, it would take her too. She stopped going to the highway after that, stopped obsessing over the crash site, stopped trying to hear his voice in the fog. But the dreams continued. Marco, standing in the fog, waving, pointing behind her. And then one night, the dream changed. He wasn't alone anymore. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Truckers in their work clothes, covered in blood and road dust. Families in their Sunday best, crushed and broken. A little girl holding a teddy bear, her neck bent at an impossible angle. All of them standing on the highway, all of them pointing, behind Maria. She turned in the dream and saw headlights coming fast, too fast, barreling down on her. The sound of an engine, roaring, unstoppable. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The lights got brighter, closer. She woke up screaming. It was 3 a.m. Her room was dark, the house was silent. And then she heard it. The sound of Marco's truck, that specific diesel rumble, idling outside, close, right outside her window. Maria got out of bed, her legs shaking, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst. She walked to the window, pulled back the curtain. The truck was there, in the driveway, engine running, headlights on, cutting through the darkness. Marco was sitting in the driver's seat. She could see his silhouette, his shape, his posture. He turned his head, looked directly at her through the window, and smiled. That same smile, the one from the bus stop 23 years ago, the one from their wedding day, the one from 1,000 Friday nights when he came home. Then he pointed, not at her, past her, down the road, toward the highway. Maria understood. He was offering her a choice. She could get in the truck, go with him, join him on that highway where the dead never leave, where the accidents replay forever, where love is strong enough to bridge the gap between life and death. Or she could stay, let him go, move on, live. Maria pressed her hand against the window glass. It was cold against her palm. "I love you," she whispered. Marco nodded, slowly. His smile faded. There was peace in his eyes, understanding. He put the truck in gear. The engine revved, the lights brightened, and then he drove away, down the street, through the intersection, toward the highway. The sound of the engine faded into the distance, growing quieter, softer, until there was nothing, just silence. Maria stood at the window for a long time, watching the empty street, waiting for him to come back. He never did. That was the last time she saw Marco. But sometimes, late at night, when a truck passes by her house, she swears she can hear his voice on the wind. "Drive safe." 2 years after Marco's death, Maria remarried.
A mechanic named Jorge, a good man who understood her past, who didn't judge her for the night she woke up crying, who didn't mind when she refused to drive on the BR-116, no matter how much time it added to their trips. She moved to a different city, started a new life, a life where every truck that passed wasn't a reminder, every Friday night wasn't a vigil. But she never forgot, and she never stopped warning people about the BR-116, about the highway of death, about the truckers who come home one last time. She joined advocacy groups, pushed for better lighting on dangerous curves, for stricter enforcement of trucking regulations, for rest areas where drivers could sleep instead of pushing through exhaustion. She spoke at schools, at community centers, anywhere people would listen. If your loved one is a trucker, she'd say, tell them you love them every time they leave, because you never know which goodbye will be the last one. Because here's the truth that most people don't want to accept. Death isn't always final. Sometimes love is stronger. Strong enough to bend the rules of reality. Strong enough to come home one last time, to say goodbye, or to warn you. The BR-116 still claims lives every year. The statistics haven't improved. If anything, they've gotten worse. More traffic, more trucks, more speed, more pressure on drivers to deliver faster, push harder, ignore safety for the sake of deadlines. Accidents happen every single week, sometimes every day. Truckers die, families die, children die. And if you talk to the people who live along that highway, they'll tell you. Late at night, you can see them. Figures standing on the shoulder, waving at passing cars, trying to flag people down. Most drivers ignore them, dismiss them as hitchhikers or figments of tired minds. But the ones who stop, the ones who slow down when they see someone waving in the fog, the ones who listen to that voice in their head that says, "Be careful here," they're the ones who make it home. They're the ones who don't become the next memorial on the side of the road. They're the ones who don't leave their families waiting by the phone on Friday nights. Marco's cross is still there, on kilometer marker 247. Someone maintains it, changes the flowers, repaints his name when the weather fades it. Maria goes once a year, on the anniversary. She brings fresh flowers, stands there for a few minutes, says a prayer. And every time, without fail, she feels him there. Not visible, not audible, but present. A warmth in the cold wind, a sense of peace in a place that should only hold tragedy. He's still there, still trying to warn people, still trying to save lives, because that's what love does. It persists. Even after death, even when logic says it's impossible, it finds a way. If you made it to the end of this video, you're part of a select group of people who can handle the truth, who can sit with the uncomfortable reality that our world is stranger and darker than we want to believe. Maria's story reminds us that love doesn't end at death, but it also reminds us that some places, some roads are marked by tragedy so deep it leaves a permanent stain, a wound in reality that never fully heals. The highway remembers, the dead remember, and if we're paying attention, if we're open to it, they try to help us, try to guide us away from the same fate. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week I bring true stories from the dark side of reality, stories that most people are too afraid to tell, stories that make you question what you think you know about life, death, and everything in between. Tell me in the comments, have you ever seen someone who shouldn't be there? A loved one who appeared after they died? A figure on a dark road trying to warn you? Have you ever felt a presence that defied explanation? Heard a voice that couldn't exist? I read every single comment, and your stories matter. They add to our understanding of what lies beyond the veil. In the next video, I'm going to tell you the story of the Viaduto das Almas, the Bridge of Souls, in Minas Gerais, Brazil, where hundreds have died in accidents so violent they left echoes, where if you stop your car at midnight, they'll surround you, dozens of them, all trying to tell you something, all replaying their final moments. Some say if you listen carefully, you can hear them, the screams, the impact, the last words. And some say if you stay too long, you'll become one of them. Until then, drive safe.